long time ago now, when I was a student and a fairly young Christian, I spent a summer reading this book. It's called The Forgiveness of Sin, and it's written by a man called John Owen, who was one of the Puritan writers from the 17th century. It's an explanation of Psalm 130. It's 400 pages of fairly closely argued text, telling us all about the meaning of the psalm, going into it in some great detail. I have to say that reading this book didn't really inspire me to read much more of the Puritan writers, because there was a lot of them and they spent a lot of time trying to explain the Bible in that same close detail. But what it did do was to impress on my mind and on my heart the Psalm 130, and it has stayed there ever since. The psalmist, our Pilgrim songwriter, is on a journey. Remember, he's travelling to Jerusalem, we think, to take part in one of the great festivals and feasts of the faith in the temple in the city of Jerusalem. And on his way, he's been reflecting on his life. And today, in Psalm 130, he wants to tell us why he's on that journey. What is it that has made him and inspired him to make this journey to Jerusalem to worship God? Here's the why of worship. He had been in a dark place. He had been in a place where everything seemed awful. And for him, it was caught up mainly with the fact that he had made lots of mistakes, and he had in his heart a deep sense of failure. He had got things wrong. He had made mistakes. He had passed over opportunities to do things which were good. And generally he felt a failure. And that deep sense of failure made his heart dark, made his mind a difficult place. And to make it worse for him, he had this sense of God with a divine clipboard standing over him, counting up these faults and mistakes, marking them all down in very close detail, so that God knew everything he had done and it was all going to count against him. But here's the turning point. Because in the psalm he says to God, "With you there is forgiveness." And forgiveness is about treating people as if they had done nothing wrong. And so he has this sense of that divine clipboard, which may well have taken down all the faults and failings of his life, being wiped clean. There is nothing on that divine clipboard anymore. And God is treating him as if he had done nothing wrong, because there is forgiveness with God. And that's the why of worship for him. That is what has inspired him to make this journey, to go to say thank you to God in the temple. And not only does he talk about forgiveness with God, but he talks about the unfailing love that God has for him as well. And he talks about the redemption that there is for the whole nation, because with God there is forgiveness. Now, fast forward a few hundred years to the coming of Jesus, and what we understand in Jesus is that these three things are made much bigger, in a sense, or are made complete when Jesus came. Jesus came that we might be forgiven. He came to show us the unfailing love that God has for us. And he came to set us free from the power of sin, so that we may live a life that is full of faith and full of love. Forgiveness is a hard thing to do for us. Treating people as if they had done nothing wrong when they have hurt us. When someone stands on your toe, you want to pay them back. You want to get your own back. You want to do to them as they've done to you, and somehow that becomes a kind of vicious cycle of revenge. Forgiveness, treating people as if they had done nothing wrong, is really hard for us to do. We still want to get our own back some way, because our pride is hurt and we're finding it really hard. But that's what the psalmist says God does for us. He treats us as if we have done nothing wrong, and so he is on his way to Jerusalem to make this great pilgrimage so that he can go to say thank you to God for his forgiveness and for his endless love for us. And that deep in our hearts is why we worship too. We are inspired to worship God because he forgives us, because he loves us, and because he redeems our lost and broken lives.